Please welcome the CEO of American Express Global Business Travel, Paul Abbott, in conversation with Skift Corporate Travel Editor, Matthew Parsons.
Hi, Paul. Welcome to the Skift Business Travel and Future Work Summit.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, thanks for taking the time to join us. Great to have you here, obviously kicking off this first session of the day, so great to have you. I think we've got about 20 minutes or so, and we'll be discussing how will TMCs rebound and adapt to business travel's new needs. So I'll just dive in if that's okay.
Yeah,
now, CEO of the world's biggest TMC travel management company, and it's a role that you took up about a year and a half ago, I believe. So perhaps you're coming into this with fairly fresh eyes. So I thought I'd just start by asking, where is the corporate travel sector right now? We're hitting this 1 year mark of the pandemic. So from your perspective, with the big clients that you have, what's the picture at the moment?
Well, look, Matt. I mean, it's been certainly a challenging 12 months for everyone, and I think a really defining moment for our industry and a defining moment for Amex GBT. It's also been an extreme test, but I think, honestly, Matt, right now I feel like it's an extreme test that has been able to expose the strengths of our industry, actually, and the strengths of our business. Certainly, we've been able to demonstrate the resilience and the commitment of our people. We've been able to demonstrate that we can strengthen relationships with clients and colleagues in these circumstances, and our NPS results and our engagement scores would suggest that we're on the right track there. For us personally, it's been an opportunity to deliver on our brand promise. You may know our brand promise is to deliver the powerful backing of American Express GBT. So it's really in times of disruption that our clients need us the most. And so it's a very important challenge for us to make sure we step up and deliver, at a time of disruption for our clients. And above all, I think that the industry has been challenged and been a challenge to demonstrate that we're built for times like this, and that we run towards clients' problems. I'm very encouraged by our ability to navigate these extremely difficult circumstances.
Yeah,
and that's really been our focus, over this last 12, 18 months. And you've seen a number of the products that we've launched to adapt to these new conditions. We launched Travel Vitals to basically give clients all the information they need to travel in this new environment. We've launched a whole series of new proactive alert features for travel managers to get real-time notifications out there to travelers. We launched this new Travel Ready microsite for travel managers last week to give them all the information they need to make better decisions. That's when you say where are we right now, that's where we are right now. We're adapting to this new environment and making sure we're delivering for clients.
Okay, so it sounds like you've been building, basically building up and ready to go for when travel does start. What's the next chapter now? I mean, obviously the vaccines are kind of the headlines at the moment, and this is good news. But from a business travel perspective, what is the next step? Are these digital health passports really useful now? I mean, what are you hearing from your clients?
Yeah, well, look, the next chapter for us is to lead the safe restart of travel. That's very clearly our focus right now. And although demand is still low, it's a strange situation. Demand has probably never been lower, but our ability to add value has never been higher due to the complexity that exists for clients. So, our focus is let's cut through that complexity. Let's simplify the process of travel, and let's build the trust and confidence that's required in order to get travel moving again, right? But above all, it's the statement of the obvious, but it needs to be safe. Clients really need to feel that it's safe to travel, and I think the industry has made significant progress there on safety protocols and education, and helping to build trust and confidence. And we're seeing where travel's permitted, we're seeing demand return. I mean, we have 90% of domestic demand back in China. Over the last 2 weeks, we've got about 50% of domestic demand back in Australia. 7 out of 10 clients in India are now back traveling. Mm-hmm. And just this last 2 weeks, we started to see some encouraging signs in the US domestic market and in particularly France and Germany. So, we are now in that period where it's time to lead the safe restart of travel, and governments hold the keys here to the safe restart of travel, Matt, right? So far, governments have have not passed the test. They've led a pretty disjointed approach to international travel, and that has to change, and has to change now. And that requires a partnership between the industry and governments to make sure that we have these clear solutions in place. And from our point of view, the solution, is clear. I mean, thanks to the advancements in science, if you have proof of vaccination or you have proof of a negative PCR test, you should be able to travel without restrictions. And we need governments to embrace that principle. And then we obviously need a foundation to be able to verify those certificates, whether it's for a negative PCR test or whether it's for a vaccine. And there's a lot of good work going on. We're working with IATA, we're working with GBTA, we're working with WTTC and directly with governments. Mm-hmm. Get governments to do two things. One is agree the principle I just mentioned. Secondly, to agree that common set of standards. In fact, there's a very important discussion happening right now with the UK government because they hold the presidency of the G7. Mm-hmm. And we're having discussions with the UK Cabinet Office and working with them to try and get the restart of travel onto the agenda for that G7 meeting in the UK. Because if we can get those governments to agree to that common set of protocols, then I think we are going to be in a much better position, certainly to restart international travel.
Yeah. And do you think, as kind of, a company your size, do you think you've got some kind of sway and influence with these governments? Because up to now it has been, slightly a bit of a mess in terms of, especially in terms of Europe and their kind of approach to borders and quarantines. So do you think you'll actually have some success with the UK government, for example?
Look, it's been a tough process, to be honest. I said at the beginning of my remarks that these circumstances have exposed some strengths, but I think they've also exposed some weaknesses. And I think business travel as an industry doesn't have the clearest identity with governments. The governments, think of travel, as a single market. And they don't realize that whilst business travelers might be 15, 20% of the passenger numbers, they can be 50 to 70% of the profits and the revenues. So I would say early stages, Matt, was a lot of education and getting them to understand the criticality of business travel. But I think we're past that now with a number of the key governments. And that we've had a lot of support there from a whole series of organizations to achieve that. And I would say more recently, it's become a lot more collaborative. And I don't want to make any firm predictions on what governments will or won't do, but I think the dialogue is very constructive now. And I do think that there will be a focus around the safe restart of travel as part of the G7 agenda. We don't know that for sure yet, but we believe that to be the case. But I think that's one of the learnings for us. I think as an industry going forward, I think we have to do more to make sure the contribution of business travel to economic growth and prosperity is really understood.
Yeah. I know in the past, you've kind of worked on, these pilot corridors between, say, New York and London. Do you think you'll try and do more of those to kind of, to demonstrate that passports do work, perhaps, with certain companies and certain airlines? Is that next?
Yeah, I think you have to be pragmatic and recognize different countries are going to be at different stages in terms of the management of the virus. So you need some risk-based protocols. The CDC and the WHO already categorized countries, low, medium, and high risk. Our perspective is travel between low risk countries, there should be no restrictions. Maybe then medium risk countries, you would say, okay, you have to have proof of vaccination or you have to have negative PCR test. Maybe if it's high risk country, you have to have some requirements on arrival. So it has, I think for the foreseeable future, we have to recognize that there will need to be a series of risk-based protocols. But I don't think it should be just bilateral arrangements with individual countries. That's not scalable. That's not getting travel moving again. That's not getting the world moving again. I think it's got to be a more ambitious version of that, right? With a clear categorization and a clear set of principles. And that requires vision and it requires leadership. And that's what we need from our industry and that's what we need from governments.
Yeah. So that's the kind of bigger picture we're talking about here. So I don't know if I could go back to a point you made about your clients and their travel programs. Things are going to look a lot different when things do actually pick up. We're not going to have the numbers of 2019. We're going to have arguably smaller amounts of travel. What are your clients asking you for when travel does start again? So obviously it's more than just picking up the phone and booking flights. So I wonder if you could share some insight there.
Yeah, look, I think there are a number of components to that. I mean, I think in the early stages here, clients are looking to us to help, lead the safe restart of travel. And, that comes in a couple of different dimensions. I think for the travel manager, suddenly, their role has become a lot more strategic. They're being asked a lot more complex questions by the C-suite. What does duty of care look like in this new environment? How do we rebuild trust and confidence with our employees in travel? How do we adapt our policies to this new environment? Where does our liability start and stop? As an employer, how do we assess the return on investment on travel going forward? So they're being asked more complex and more strategic questions. So first of all, it's our responsibility to step up and help them answer those questions and respond to those new demands. I think secondly, on the traveler side, it's a number of the things that I touched on before. It's making sure that we rebuild trust and confidence with travelers. And that comes in different shapes and sizes. So Travel Vitals, I think, is a critical part of that. 400 different API connections so that you can put your trip in and it brings back all the information you need to know before you go. Absolutely critical. Giving travel managers the opportunity to basically push out these travel alerts based on parameters they configure. Another very important part of it. Messaging, we think, is going to be critical.
Yeah.
I think travelers now are going to want to access a trained travel consultant more frequently, and they're going to want to do it where they want, when they want. You might be in flight and you might be about to land and think, I'm a little uncertain about what I'm going to experience here. But you can go onto the GBT app, you can message your travel counselor and get a response back. Or you can do it from iMessage, or you can do it from Slack, or you can do it from WhatsApp. So making sure that we are adapting to the new environment and providing the services that the traveler needs and the travel manager needs. That's what our clients are asking for, and that's what I hope we're delivering.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what Skift has been covering in the past year, there's been a lot of innovation, a lot of new platforms and products being developed. Again, people say because there's been this quiet time and it's an easier time to roll out these things. So yeah, great to talk about, you talked about messaging just now. So in terms of innovation, there are a lot of new players coming to the market. There are existing agencies with a tech focus, which are kind of getting bigger and bigger investments. How do you, as a kind of, if I can say, legacy agency, stay competitive in this market?
Well, look, I think to stay competitive, you have to adapt, you've got to innovate, and you've got to deliver on your client needs. That's the foundation. But I find your description kind of interesting, in legacy TMCs and new entrants, and this kind of implicit view that it's only the new entrants that somehow focused on technology. Totally inaccurate. I think we've invested $600 million in technology over the last 5 years. I would imagine that's more than any other travel management company. Certainly more than any new entrant. And we've developed our own suite of digital and e-commerce products. We've built out our own e-commerce and digital development hub. And we've built out, a flexible, modern core platform that, powers our solutions across all segments. And, Matt, it's important to sort of recognize we serve a really, broad set of clients across different segments. So in some cases, clients want a turnkey integrated digital platform. We can deliver that with our Neo Travel and Neo Expense solutions. Other clients, they want to configure the technology solution. They want to fully integrate it into their environment. They want to integrate it into their HR systems, into their finance systems, into third-party solutions. And again, we absolutely can and have to deliver that solution. So what's critical for us to compete isn't to have one solution. It's to have a flexible, modern platform that can meet a range, of client needs. And look, at the end of the day, the proof is in the results. Last year was a record year for us. We signed over 3 billion of new business, including some of the largest technology companies in the world choosing American Express GBT and choosing us because of the sophistication and the proven ability for us to integrate our technology solutions into their environment. So we will continue to invest heavily in technology. I mean, even in the last 12 months, the new Neo Expense solution, new release of Neo, Travel Vitals, the messaging expansion, the travel alerts, integration of NDC content into the supply marketplace. It's going to continue, and it'll have to accelerate in 2021 because it's a huge part of our future.
Yeah, I guess by legacy, you could also mean, kind of more established and been in the market longer. But there are companies which are coming in with maybe a technology first. Perhaps they're more agile because they're, newer to the market. So we're talking about, other companies in the marketplace, and another trend as well, technology has been consolidation. So there's been countless activity. CTM in Australia have bought Travel and Transport and Corporate Travel Planners recently. You yourself, XGBT, have bought Ovation Travel, I think it was a month or two ago. What's the strategy here? Do you see any trends in the wider marketplace, and can you talk a little bit about your acquisition as well?
Yeah, sure. I can certainly talk about our strategy. Our focus is to strengthen our value proposition and be able to create more value for clients. And if an acquisition can bring assets and capabilities to GBT that can help us do that, we'll consider it. But it has to support our strategy. We've made 2 acquisitions in the last 12 months, and in some ways they couldn't be more different. We acquired 30 Seconds to Fly, which is a company that has proven expertise in using artificial intelligence to improve the traveler experience, particularly around chat and messaging services. And Ovation. And Ovation is obviously addressing a different need. Ovation is a proven leader in providing really outstanding high-touch service to clients, and doing that in very important and demanding industry verticals. And it's a business we've been interested in for some time, and they have an outstanding team. They have a great culture, and they're going to continue to operate as a distinct division.
So you're not going to take over. With HRG a couple of years ago, obviously that brand is being phased out. So Ovation will kind of stay as a separate division, or?
Yeah, we will definitely keep the Ovation brand and keep Ovation as a distinct offer to our clients. So that, as I mentioned before, our strategy is to have the market-leading experience for each of the segments we serve, and Ovation absolutely fits the bill for the segment that they serve.
Yeah, could you also say, there's a case that there are slightly distressed sales taking place? A lot of companies, perhaps the smaller agencies that have relied on big volumes of travel, they've just not that travel has not been coming in the past year. So is there an argument that there's going to be a lot more because these companies they have to sell or they collapse?
Yeah, clearly the last 12 months have created tremendous economic pressure on anyone in the travel industry. So that's definitely the case. But that's not what's driving our M&A strategy. Our M&A strategy, is driven by making sure that we bring in the right capabilities to strengthen the value that we deliver to clients. And that's what we've been doing. That's what we'll continue to do. I think we've been interested in innovation for quite some time. Definitely before the pandemic. So I do think you're right that there will continue to be consolidation in the industry. But frankly, I think that would have happened without the pandemic, because the level of investment that's required now to compete, particularly in terms of e-commerce and digital solutions and technology infrastructure, and being able to embrace and consolidate and aggregate fragmented content, being able to integrate NDC, it requires a high level of investment to compete. So I do think that consolidation is likely to continue.
And obviously, we've had the founder of Certares, Greg O'Hara, speak at our events in the past, and obviously Certares is an investor, joint investor in GBT, and he's been very vocal. He's been Certares has been making lots of investments, and there are other companies. We're hearing, for example, some of the other agencies like CWT, for example, are potentially looking for sales. Would you have any views on whether that would make a good fit with your business as a takeover or as a merger?
No, Matt, as you probably imagine, I wouldn't comment on any specific company or specific transaction. It's just not something that I would comment on. As I said earlier, our strategy is to bring in assets and capabilities that will execute on our strategy, which is to have the market-leading brands and the market-leading experience for each of the segments that we serve. So that's how we would assess any opportunity like that.
Okay. So in this today's summit, we have future of work in the title, and obviously this is going to be, we think it's going to be quite a big theme in the next, in the coming years. And I heard you talk at the ITM conference earlier last year, and even back then you were mentioning that the fact that you have to build up these remote teams, do a lot of international recruitment, could lend itself to more travel. Do you think this is an avenue for Amex GBT to kind of capitalize on that trend?
Yeah, I mean, it will generate more travel, and I know that it's a fact, and I'll tell you why I know it. Because before the pandemic, over 90% of our workforce was already remote in the US. We moved to a remote working environment several years ago. And what we found when we did that was that over time, people obviously then live, you recruit talent in different places. It gives you tremendous flexibility, but you have to bring people together more often, because you don't have people concentrated in the office every day for, training, for being able to build your culture, for being able to demonstrate the values, for being able to inspire and motivate people, being able to collaborate. So what actually has happened for us is, although our real estate costs went down, our travel costs went up. And so I do expect that to happen. Now, whether it's going to offset, other, pressures like economic pressure or substitution from technology remains to be seen. But I do think that's one of the tailwinds. That, of course, there are headwinds, but I do think that having a more distributed workforce is one of the tailwinds for travel.
Yeah, and going back to kind of technology, you launched a kind of new platform called Workplaces, which will be designed for your clients' employees to meet up together for maybe, I think it's an hour or 2 hours, or for these kind of meetings. How's the reaction been to that launch? Have you had much take up of it yet?
No, the early days, but we know that it's a client need, because we're building on a trend that was already taking place. We've seen hotels actually convert their rooms and some of their public areas into more flexible workspaces. But there wasn't an easy way of clients being able to organize and access that content. It's a bit like, it's in a smaller way, but it's a bit like, Uber Eats is trying to organize, the delivery service, Amazon, organizing, e-commerce. There was a kind of dysfunctional market there, hotels converting their workspaces, for a different purpose, clients trying to understand where they are. And so we're trying to provide a service to connect the two. But literally, I mean, it's just launched. We definitely know that it's a need. And, the initial reaction, certainly from clients, has been positive, but it'll take some time before we can point to any real volumes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you think it could become, the new corporate travel, for maybe the rest of this year, as people stay local and the international flights are being, still off limits?
Well, look, it's definitely on trend. We're certainly seeing hotel volumes are about 8 percentage points higher than air. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing, obviously, most of that being domestic hotels. So the short answer is yes. Having said that, I don't want that to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because we need to open up international travel. Yeah. But I do recognize that's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, great. I think we are pretty much out of time for this first session. And, it's been really interesting hearing your take on the kind of bigger picture, and also some of the products you've been launching for the marketplace. So, thanks again for joining us for today.
Thanks. Nice talking to you, Matt. Thanks very much. Good luck with the rest of the sessions.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.